growing in. That way I don't have to reseed or wait for them to germinate. Good morning, Cozy family. It is time. The gardening season is upon us, and I could not be more excited. Even though there's still a chill in the air, they're calling for snow tomorrow, and there's still ice on my back deck. But I'm not thinking about that because this is the promise of new life, and I love it. When you see dirt underneath these fingernails, just know that I'm at my happiest. Can I keep long manicured fingernails? No. Do I care? Because this is where it's at. This is where I live. So I live in a 5A growing zone, which means that certain plants have to be planted so many days before our last frost date. Now our last frost date is usually around the end of May. What I do is I go by a guide, and that guide tells me if I want to plant tomatoes, how many days before my last frost date I need to plant those tomatoes or peppers or whatever. What I do is I prepare my trays with a organic potting mix. I like to use the trays that have a larger capacity for the soil. Why? Because then I don't have to transplant these tiny little seedlings yet again before I have to put them in the ground. So I have this tray here, which I got from Canadian Tire, and this is 21 plants in one tray. So today we're gonna plant a couple of trays. I'm gonna show you now what I do to prepare these trays, and then we'll be right back here. So now that you've seen how I prepare the trays, now I'm going to show you how I do my planting. I keep all my seeds in a container like this because it keeps my seeds nice and fresh, and I store it in a cool, dry place off season. These are not all the seeds I have. These are the ones that I do early planting. So we're going to start with the San Marzano tomatoes. These are amazing tomatoes because they're paste tomatoes, which means that they have a very low water content and great for sauce. So these can be planted 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. Look how small these little seeds are. You know what's amazing to me? That there's little seeds like this, with these little seeds, tiny little seed like that, and you get pounds and pounds of food from that one little thing. God is amazing. That's all I can say. Now it's really important that you have your hands very, very clean because you don't want to introduce any bacteria to these seeds. So what I do is I put 2 seeds per hole. I mean per cell. And these only want to be about 1/4 of an inch below surface. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop a little seed in each of these little holes. Now, the reason I'm putting 2 seeds per cell is to give my germination rate a little bit of more of a chance. That way I don't have to reseed or wait for them to germinate or not germinate and then have to reseed. This just saves time. You know what we're gonna do? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose the healthier of these two. If they both come up, if they both germinate and they both come up, I'm gonna choose the healthier of those two plants and remove the other one. And that just gives it the best chance. Okay, so we have that. All you wanna do is just cover them slightly. Just slightly, like that. And as you saw the way I did, how I filled these trays, I made sure there were no air pockets because that's not good for the little roots trying to grow. We're trying to give them the best chance. If you see little sticks and things like that, just remove that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, you actually don't really wanna use popsicle sticks or wooden stakes, but I run out of the plastic ones. The reason you don't want to use these is because you could introduce mold to these cells, and that is not a good thing, but I will get some plastic ones and replace these. So these are San Marzano tomatoes. And what I like to do is put the date on the back that I planted them or that I seeded them. So what I usually do is I'll put it in the first cell. I don't put one in every cell. I just put it in the first cell, and then I skip the cells, like these 9 cells have tomatoes in them. So I'm gonna skip those, and then I'll put a new stick in this one for whatever else that I'm planting. The next thing I'm gonna plant is some cherry tomatoes. These are called super sweet. They are fantastic. So we're gonna start here. Again, I'm gonna do 2 per cell. And again, you're just gonna wanna cover those up just a slight bit. Okay, oops. 1, 2, 3, and then it's in this row here. That's why it's important to actually label these quickly, because you will forget what is in these cells. Okay, now we want to do some red pimento peppers. Peppers take a lot longer to germinate, so you really want to get those in early. So I'm gonna do 2. These also have to be pretty shallow. So after I seed them like that, I just want to moisten that soil. You saw before how this soil is already quite moist because I did that before I even put them in the cells. When I first seed them, I will do this twice a day to keep them moist. It's the most important thing when you're germinating any kind of seed. You want to keep it moist. You never want them to dry out. Now I'm going to put this little cover over it, this little see-through cover, because it acts like a greenhouse. Now this doesn't need light right away until they germinate, but I just leave them like this on the seed shelf, and then when they start to germinate, I will actually turn the lights on for them. Now in this next tray, I want to get my herbs started. Herbs take a little longer to germinate as well. We're going to start on the oregano. Now, oregano in a 5A growing zone can become perennial. If you plant oregano, it may actually survive winter and grow into a huge bush. And it's beautiful because every year you can harvest from it. But I want to start some new ones. So there we go, some oregano. Now these will take a little longer to germinate than some things. Now I'm going to do my favorite, basil. And when I do basil, I do many plants. Why? Because basil is a great thing to plant with tomatoes. It actually helps to ward off pests because of its strong smell. So the typical pests that you would get with, oh, actually, this is the parsley. Okay, we're gonna start with the parsley then. Already got seeds in my hand. Most herbs will ward off pests in the garden. So you're going to want to put those very close to things that are highly susceptible to pests. Tomatoes are one of them. Also squash bugs, they love to attack cucumbers and squash and so on. So next we're going to do a lot of basil, because I love basil and you could just never have enough basil, ever. So I'm going to do 3 rows of cells with basil. Basil is a really strong smelling plant and excellent with the tomatoes, which is funny because they actually taste excellent together too after harvest. These are such tiny little seeds that literally I should have my glasses on, because can I even see them going in there? No. Now gardening for me is absolutely therapeutic. When I'm in the garden, the world goes away. I don't think of anything. I just think, wow, God's amazing. Look at this creation. Look what I can do in the garden. Every year, I have a major tug of war, basically, with the rabbits. The rabbits love my garden. So what I have learned to do, and I tried a variety of things, what I've learned to do is plant clover as a cover crop around the perimeter of my garden. And this makes the rabbits very happy. You would think that it would attract more rabbits, and it might, but they usually get really busy eating that clover and don't really get into the garden and start munching on everything else. But it's been they've skunked me a few years. They have, until I learned this. Okay, so these 3 rows have basil. In this row here, I'm actually going to plant some chamomile. Chamomile, I love growing my own chamomile because I love chamomile tea. So I'm going to grow them in this next cell. This is an organic German chamomile. This is the great one for tea. Okay. And again, this takes a bit to germinate. That's why I'm doing them a little bit early. And again, the seeds are tiny. And again, chamomile will come up every year. But I want some new plants, so let's do that. In this next tray, I'm going to plant brassica plants. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, things like that, because I love them, first of all. And second of all, they can be planted, they're cold weather plants, so they really love to be planted early. So I'm going to plant some broccoli first. I already planted, in that last row of the last one, I put 1 row of broccoli as well, because we love broccoli. With brassicas, you have to be worried about the cabbage worm. It loves to lay its eggs in brassica plants. So what you want to do really is cover it with netting. But we grow so much, we grow a lot, and I'm of the belief that if the animals get to some of these plants, then they will. Because I plant so much, it would be not realistic to really cover everything with netting. So sometimes it does really well, sometimes not so much, but I am happy to share with other creatures. So off camera, I did add a few more rows of the Brussels sprouts and broccoli because I just want more of those. And again, you want to really dampen those. Now the reason you want to just use a fine mist is because if you move those seeds around, you could expose them and you just won't have a great germination rate. Okay. In order for me to grow my seedlings indoors, I need to put grow lights on them. Now I know a lot of people put them in the window and so on, but they're not getting enough full spectrum light. And if you do that, your plants are starting off at a disadvantage. What happens is they're not getting full spectrum light and they will grow leggy, which means they're very spindly. The stalks are not very thick. Even if they survive with just the window light, they will be susceptible to diseases and pests when they're in the garden. So that's why I always use grow light. These are LED lights that are full spectrum light. I got these from Canadian Tire. They're about $59 each. These I've had for years, but they're really good, they're energy efficient, and they give that blue-red spectrum light that you really need, and it mimics the sun for the seedlings. Until these seedlings germinate, they don't really need light, but as soon as you see them starting to pop up, you're gonna wanna have the light on them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to attach the light under here, like that. When they are very small, you're gonna want it very, very close, probably within about 4 inches away from the tray itself, away from the soil, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set that up now and I'll show you. So all I did is I tied up these lights right under here with some string. That way they're adjustable. I can lower them or make them higher as the plants grow. Now, this shelf probably won't last me for very, very long because these plants are gonna grow quite large. Now, I may transfer them to the greenhouse at that point, but at least they're here, they're in the house, they're easy to water twice a day, and that's what I like to do. I like to keep an eye on them. It's just a great constant reminder when I see this in my kitchen that the gardening season is upon us, and that just makes me really happy. Here's the seed shelf all done, all set up. Now it's been a couple of days and I need to show you something exciting. Can you see that? Hello, new life. It's only been 2 days and already we have a little sprout. This is the broccoli that's sprouting. And here there's Brussels sprouts coming up. I just love it. So as soon as you see the sprouts coming up like that, you're gonna wanna turn the lights on. So all the lights are on now, and I make sure I still water twice a day. I want to give you a sneak peek at the family farm and the area I grow all of my produce. This area is mainly an agricultural area, but we have sectioned off a large area for our potager garden, which is our kitchen garden. I grow this garden using organic principles. This is a windy area, so we've planted trees all around the potager garden to shield it from the wind and separate it from the vast fields beyond it. It feels more cozy that way. This is beautiful black loamy soil. Everything grows really well in the soil. Every spring we get flooding like this, but in a couple of weeks it will dry up and work begins on prepping the garden for this season. I just can't wait. The seedlings that we seeded today will go into this garden, along with directly sown seeds like beets and potatoes and squash, Swiss chard, beans and lettuce, and so many more delicious things. Thank you for spending time with me today. See you next time.